Chapter 1, Part B. Perfect, he answered. I went all the way to the small inner chamber of the cave and made footprints down to the river and all the way back. Then I took off the footprints and carried them and erased my own footprints, both inside the chambers, or inside both chambers. When Parley sees those footprints, it'll cure him of his bragging and cost him his Bowie knife. I was just finishing my first stack of buckwheat cakes with melted butter and maple sugar when Uncle Mark came into our kitchen. He was usually calm, like a peace officer should be, but this morning he looked all excited. "Pete George came to my house this morning just as we were finishing breakfast," he said to Pa. "He told me he'd seen some strange tracks leading from Skeleton Cave down to the river. I went to investigate. You won't believe this, but there are tracks of an animal I've never seen leading from the cave to the river and back." "What kind of tracks?" Papa said while he wiped his mouth on his napkin. "They're the footprints of an animal of some kind. They have a three-pronged hoof with 3 toes pointing in different directions," Mark replied. Pa jumped to his feet. "A prehistoric animal that has made its home in the cave all those years?" he shouted. "What a new story this'll make!" Mama didn't share Papa's enthusiasm. "You said you saw underground rivers in the cave when the Jensen boys got lost," she said to Uncle Mark. "Why would any such animal come down to the river to drink?" "Well, for any one of half a dozen reasons," Pa exclaimed. "Underground rivers run dry. The animal could have gotten lost in the miles of underground caverns and labyrinths in the cave and found its way to the entrance in search of water." "Well, I think the best thing to do," Uncle Mark said, "is to get the mayor's permission and dynamite the entrance to the cave so the beast can't get out again. I've been wanting to seal up that cave ever since the Jensen boys got lost in it." "You'll do no such thing," Papa said. "Think of what this means to science. If an animal came out once to drink, it'll come out again. I'll send a telegram right off to the Smithsonian Institution, asking them to send an expert on prehistoric animals to Aidenville." Pa was so excited he ran out of the house with his napkin still tied around his neck. "Keep the boys in the house," Uncle Mark said to Mama, and then he ran after Papa. Aunt Bertha raised her big arms over her head. "A live monster in our midst!" she cried out. "Lord preserve us!" Tom excused himself from the table without finishing his breakfast. "Where do you think you're going?" Mama demanded. "I've got to see Pa," he answered. "You and J.D. will do exactly as your Uncle Mark said. You won't step foot out of this house," Mama said. "This animal or beast or whatever it is could be very dangerous." "But there's something I have to tell Papa," Tom said. "Well, or I'll telephone him at the Advocate." "You will not," Mama said. "Your Uncle Mark is going to have the switchboard tied up, letting everybody in town know that they shouldn't let anyone out of their homes. Whatever it is you want to tell your father can wait." Tom and I went up to our room. "Who would believe grown-ups could be such fools?" he asked, plenty disgusted. "I figured Parley and the kids might swallow the story, but how could intelligent men like Papa and Uncle Mark believe such an impossible thing?" "You'd better figure out some way to tell Papa those footprints are fake," I said. Tom thought for a moment, and then he smiled. Papa will know they're fake when he sees them, he said confidently. Papa's a college graduate, and they must have taught him about prehistoric animals in college. My brother couldn't have been more wrong. Uncle Mark swung into action first by telephoning everybody in town to lock their doors and keep all the women and children inside. He swore in 50 deputies to patrol the streets armed with rifles and shotguns. The whole town became paralyzed with terror to the point of panic. Many families decided it was a good time to visit relatives outside of Aidenville. Papa telephoned he wouldn't be home for lunch. By suppertime, Tom had decided that things had gone this far, he might as well wait until morning to tell Papa, so he could collect his bet off a parlay. Anyway, the damage had already been done. Papa told us during supper that he'd sent telegrams to Salt Lake City newspapers and got out an extra of the Advocate. Uncle Mark had posted lookouts and promised if the monster came to the river to drink it that night, he would send for Papa. Then Tom and I went to bed. My brother insisted he was going through with his plan. When the curfew whistle blew, he took the screen off our bedroom window and shimmied down the elm tree. It wasn't until Tom disappeared into the darkness that I became afraid. I knew he made the footprints, but that was no guarantee that there weren't monsters and giant snakes in the cave. There were plenty of grown-ups who believed there were. I kept getting more frightened until I was shaking all over. Maybe it was true that big snakes and monsters had been frightened of Lady and Brownie, but Lady was home and Brownie was locked up in the barn. One of those giant snakes or big monsters was just lying in wait for my brother and would gobble him up. I'd never see Tom again. My fear gave way to panic. I jumped out of bed and ran downstairs into the parlor. Papa was talking to Uncle Mark. "TD's gone to Skeleton Cave," I screamed. "Now why would he do that?" Papa asked testily. Papa was always one to take a second thought, and when it came, he jumped to his feet. "Good Lord!" he shouted. Mama and Aunt Bertha came running into the parlor from the kitchen, where they had been making sandwiches and coffee for the men on patrol. "Patrol the streets," Papa shouted at Uncle Mark. "The streets are patrolled," the Uncle Mark said. "I wish they weren't now. In all this excitement, some trigger-happy deputy might take a shot at the boy." Papa and Uncle Mark dashed out of the house before I could tell them the footprints were a fake. "What in the world has gotten into your father and uncle?" Mama asked. "TD sneaked out after curfew and went to Skeleton Cave," I cried. "Oh, dear God," Mama cried. Then she knelt on the floor and began to pray. I don't know how long we remained there until Aunt Bertha broke the silence. "Why in the name of heaven would a boy do such a thing?" she asked helplessly. "It wasn't what Tom D. has done that counts," Mom said. "The only thing that matters is that he returned my son to me safely." It seemed like a long time before our parlor door opened, and in came Papa and Uncle Mark and my brother. Papa waited until Mama and Aunt Bertha had made a fuss over Tom and assured themselves he was all right. Then he folded his arms on his chest. "And now, TD," he said sternly, "it will be most interesting to hear why you risked being shot by a nervous deputy, or killed by a prehistoric monster, and almost give all of us heart failure in the bargain." Boy, did I screw that delivery up. Hold on. Hey, Boo, don't run away. Boop, don't run away. One more try. Come on, get that dad verse right. And now, TD, he said sternly, it would be most interesting to hear why you risked being shot by a nervous deputy, or killed by a prehistoric monster, and almost give us all heart failure in the bargain. I made a bet with Parley Benson, Tom said, as if he went around scaring the daylights out of people every day in the week. You and Uncle Mark are my witness that I was in the entrance to Skeleton Cave tonight after curfew, and Parley wasn't there. Papa unfolded his arms and clasped his hands to the side of his head. He sort of staggered to his rocking chair and slumped down on it. Oh no, he cried out as if he had a sudden pain in his stomach. Uncle Mark looked steadily at Tom. What kind of bet? He asked. I bet Parley, my air rifle, jackknife, and 25 cents in cash against his Bowie knife, that he would be afraid to meet me at Skeleton Cave tonight, Tom answered. My great brain figured out a way to cure Parley of his bragging and teach him a lesson at the same time. Then Uncle Mark spoke sharply to my brother. Do you realize that you could have been shot and killed by one of my deputies? Tom smiled confidently. I knew with my great brain I could sneak past your patrols easily, he said. And you still went there knowing this beast or whatever might have killed you? Uncle Mark asked. Tom looked at Papa. About those tracks, Papa, he said. I couldn't remain quiet any longer. TD's great brain figured out a way to win the bet from Parley, I said. I helped him get the hoofs from behind the slaughterhouse and stood guard outside the barn while he made the footprints of the monster. I think, Mama said severely, that Tom Dennis had better do his own explaining. I sneaked out after curfew last night, Tom confessed. Made the tracks from the cave down to the river and back. I knew if Parley thought there was a real-life monster in that cave, he wouldn't go near it tonight, and I'd win the bet. He tapped his temple with his finger. Some brain, huh, Mama? I should have known, Uncle Mark said slowly. The tracks weren't deep enough to have been made by anything as heavy as a prehistoric animal. He looked helplessly around the room. This'll make you the laughingstock of every peace officer in Utah, he said in a very tired voice. Make you a laughingstock, Tom exclaimed, flapping his arms as if he were trying to fly. My reputation as a journalist is ruined. I'm finished. I was going to tell you the footprints were fake, Tom protested, but Mama wouldn't let me. Papa looked at Mama as if she had just stabbed him in the back. I can't believe that you, of all people, would help perpetrate such a cruel joke, he said. I knew nothing about the fake footprints. Mama said, Tom D. did mention that he had something to tell you this morning, but I didn't think it was important and told him it could wait. Tom nodded. And when you came home from supper, it was too late, he said. I figured the damage was done, so I might as well win my bet. Uncle Mark sure looked mighty glum. I don't know what I'll do. Or where we will go after I turn my badge in, he said. I was only trying to scare Parley away from the cave, Tom said, trying to defend himself. I thought he and the other kids might believe there was a live monster in the cave, but I never in a million years thought that grown-ups would believe such an impossible thing. To my surprise, Mama began to smile. I guess that puts you both in your place, she said, apparently getting even for what Papa had said to her. Don't worry, Papa, A great break and save both you and Uncle Mark. I'll put it to work this morning, right after Mama wouldn't let... One moment. Gonna choke on it. You guys, have you had your teas yet? This isn't tea today, this is coffee. Have you had your coffees yet? No, hey, listen. You're not even paying attention. Pay attention. Thank you. Look at this. Such a long chapter. Right. Don't worry, Papa, Tom said. My great brain can save both you and Uncle Mark. I put it to work this morning right after Mama wouldn't let me go tell you about the tracks. All you have to do is seal up the entrance to the cave by dynamiting it, and nobody will ever be able to prove there wasn't a live monster. A smile tugged at the corner of Uncle Mark's lips. I know the mayor will give his permission, because people have been asking him to seal up the cave entrance ever since the Jensen boarders got lost in it. That just leaves the tracks. Did you guys hear the thunder? Oh, it's about to rain tonight. What a happy and wonderful time to read books. All right. Shh, 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 shh. That just leaves the tracks. Papa appeared to suddenly decide he wanted to... Papa suddenly... Hold on. Excuse me. Papa appeared to suddenly decide he wanted to live on this earth a little longer. Pierre Dusseret has a herd of sheep in the stockyards, he said. I'll get him to drive that herd from the river up to the cave and leave them grazing on Cedar Ridge as soon as you lock up the entrance. Papa. Then Papa looked at Tom, and his face wasn't fatherly at all, but downright unfriendly. You boys go to bed, he commanded. I'll deal with you in the morning. Tom and I were sound asleep when a mighty blast of dynamite shook our house. The next morning a herd of sheep was sent grazing on Cedar Ridge, and you couldn't have found a trace of the fake footprints with a magnifying glass. I thought for sure that Tom's brilliant idea would make the punishment light, but it didn't. Papa handed down his sentence right after we'd finished eating breakfast. A person who cheats to win a bet is no better than a person who steals, Papa said to Tom. You will call off your bet with Percy Benson, and you will give me your word of honor that you will never make another bet with another boy. Tom's face took on a look of a boy who had just lost a beaut of a bowie knife. I promise, word of honor, he said reluctantly. But don't forget, Papa, that you and Uncle Mark cheated by letting those people believe it really was a monster. Papa took a deep breath, which he held so long his cheeks puffed up and his face turned red. Then he slowly exhaled. You're right, he admitted. But only about the footprints and the monster story. Sneaking out of the house after curfew for 2 straight nights is an entirely different matter. And for that, T.D., you will not receive your allowance for doing your chores for the next 4 weeks. And because JD conspired with you, I hereby pronounce a sentence of 1 week of the silent treatment on both of you. Tom and I were the most unfortunate kids in town. When any other kids did something wrong, all they got was a whipping. When Tom and I did something wrong, we got the silent treatment, which was 10 times worse than a whipping. It meant Mama and Papa wouldn't speak to us, and if we spoke to them, they would pretend they didn't hear us. And it was as if Tom and I didn't exist as far as they were concerned during the silent treatment. How I wish they would act like normal parents and give us a whipping and get it all over with in a hurry. Papa sent a telegram to the Smithsonian Institution informing them it was all a hoax. Star reporters from Salt Lake City and Denver, and even from San Francisco, came to Aidenville, but were unable to prove the story of the night that the monster walked was a hoax. After all, hundreds of people had seen the tracks of the monster, and Uncle Mark said he sealed up the entrance to the cave to protect the lives of the citizens of Aidenville. None of the newspapers seemed interested in opening the cave and searching for the monster. And Pierre de Sierre said that he hadn't even heard about the tracks of the monster when he put his herd of sheep out to graze on Cedar Ridge. Hadn't even heard of it yet. My little brain couldn't figure out how the minds of grown-ups worked. Tom had saved Papa's reputation as an editor and a publisher, and saved Uncle Mark's reputation as a marshal and deputy sheriff. I thought he could be entitled to a reward instead of being punished. But my little brain did figure out something about telling a lie. A kid tells a lie, and his parents give him a whipping or a punishment of some kind. But his parents can tell lies all over the place, like Papa did, and that was all right, because they're grown-ups. The way I figured it, it was that when our parents were kids, they got punished for telling lies, and the only way they could get even was to wait until they had kids of their own to punish for telling lies. Well, I'll show Papa and Mama. Boy, oh boy, when I'm a grown-up, I'll be the biggest liar in the world, and I'll hand down sentences of whole months of silence treatments on my own kids every time they die. All right. We'll return.